Welcome into this Thursday edition of Pushing the Pile, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Mike Renner, JP Acosta, breaking down all of Week 5. Not technically all. We did Thursday Night Football yesterday, but the rest of Week 5. We got bye weeks starting off this week, so not as many games as usual. But before that, let's get into a little locks recap from a week ago. As always, all season long, up to the playoffs. Cash App is sponsoring our locks. We'll track how we're doing each episode, with the winner being presented with the Cash App Locks Trophy at the end of the season. It was a rocky Week 4, shall we say. I went 5-3. You went 1-3. Harry went 2-2. And Kyle, with his 2 to 3 picks a week, he hasn't missed yet, but he's only picked 4 games, so he's 4 now. Some notes, though, on Thursday Night Football, because we did a little brief preview yesterday. But then we talked about the injury report. It wasn't finalized. It came out. No Brock Purdy, no Jawan Jennings, no Ricky Pearsall. Basically, no 49ers team. They are going to now potentially break the NFL record for straight games without an interception. They've gone 11 straight games without an interception. If they go 12, that would be an NFL record.
That's insane, especially considering that I think this defense is pretty good, but
yeah,
it's honestly really tough for the 49ers because it feels like this is a thing that happens every year. They are always one of the most injured teams in the NFL by week 5. Part of it is how they've built the roster. They've built around a lot of guys who haven't played a lot of football, but there's also been a lot of freak injury stuff. Like Brock Purdy should not have been out there last week. That he really shouldn't have been out there. But the fact that they're now, we said going into the season, they had a really light schedule. They had the potential to really run through this schedule and get back to the top of the NFC West. They don't have anybody. They're starting Mac Jones again against the actual leaders of the NFC West right now. So it's just tough for them, and it's tough for a lot of Niners fans who wanted to see what Brock Purdy was made of, especially in a year that would put a lot more strain on him in terms of just the down-to-down processing.
Yeah, I just don't know why they had to rush him back. You lost last week. It obviously didn't pay off. I feel like this game should have been the one you circled to be get him ready for the divisional rival. But alas, we'll see how it turns out tonight. But that's moved the line up to 7.5 now, even growing in certain places in the Rams' favor. Let's get to the Monday Night Football game, the biggest game of the weekend. Didn't expect to say that necessarily coming week 1, but with all the injuries, with all the stuff happening throughout the NFL, it's KC at Jacksonville. Chiefs are favored, 3-point favorites on the road. 46.5 points is the over-under. This is a matchup between the defense that we've talked about all season long in the Jacksonville Jaguars that leads the NFL in turnovers, 13, and the Kansas City Chiefs offense that, they've only turned the ball over once all season long. An immovable object meets unstoppable force. We'll see who comes out atop in this one. How do you see this one playing out, though?
I'm so fascinated by the battle between the Jaguars defense and the Chiefs offense, because what the Chiefs do so much is they stress your communication. They stress all your rules. They're going to try and push and poke every button. That's what they do with that RPO, a lot of the motion stuff. They try and do it to push your buttons to try and get you to break your rules going side to side, and then they'll try and hit you downfield. That's very similar to in their opening game against the Chargers. They ran a little orbit motion with Brashard Smith 4 times before they did it on a screen and go to Travis Kelce later in the game to almost tie that game up. So the Jaguars defense has been such a good unit at forcing turnovers, but I do think down to down, they've also been a very good down to down defense without using the turnovers. But what they can do is they can get pressure. They can get pressure without blitzing. And that's something that I think the Jaguars are going to have to do in this game. They're going to have to collapse the pocket on Patrick Mahomes. I do wonder if Trayvon Walker plays. I think the run defense takes a little bit of, not a little bit of a hit. It takes a big hit if Trayvon Walker doesn't play. But if he does play, that's Josh Hines Allen, running mate in pass rush situations. He's playing at an incredible level, and you're probably going to see a lot of Hines Allen if Trayvon Walker plays. You're going to see a lot of Hines Allen walked out over Simmons. You're going to see him over Jawan Taylor a lot. And then I just want to see if they can get this Chiefs offense frustrated. If they can use their speed on defense to kind of counteract the speed that the Chiefs play with in their RPO game, because that's really where the game's going to be won.
Yeah, with the injuries will be big. Obviously, Trayvon Walker playing would be big. We won't know the injury report since it's the Monday Night Football game till later today. But I think the addition or the return of Xavier Worthy just transforms this team. I discussed it in the preseason. I was like, man, when I watched this guy on tape, he was just a different cat this year. He looked like he was, he's not Tyreek Hill. No one's Tyreek Hill, but he looked like he was the type of guy, like a Deshaun Jackson type, where it's just like he can flip basically the field in a blink of an eye in a way that Tyquan Thornton can't, in a way that Marquise Brown can't. Their speed, they're all similar vein of wide receivers, but they're not similar talent of wide receivers at this point in time. And so obviously his addition last week was big. And I think he's going to be the X factor in this one. If you can basically get him matched up against those Jaguars safeties, I like that matchup for Kansas City. I like Kansas City's offense to roll. But the thing is, the Jags run D has been so good this season, and the Chiefs rushing offense has been such a disaster that this one could really just be all on Patrick Mahomes. And obviously, if you're going to put it all on one guy, there's not too many others that you'd rather it be on in the NFL. But I just think they're going to make them so one-dimensional that the Chiefs offense, I think, is just going to sputter a little bit. Sputter enough that I like the Jaguars in this one, truthfully.
Another thing to point out is the Chiefs defense is 28th in EPA per carry allowed this year. They are not good at defending the run, partially because they don't have a defensive tackle they can trust outside of Chris Jones. They don't have, outside the Chris Jones splash plays, Nick Bolton hasn't been up to par. You're having to get into a lot of heavy looks, and that's something where the Chiefs have not been good when teams bring on heavy personnel, when they have to go to their base. And that's something I think the Jaguars are just going to try and hammer them. With 21, they're trying to get into big looks, and they're going to try and run the ball a lot. I do think there's a chance to hit some explosives in this game, especially on play action. I know I have said that I'm going to be emotionally hedging against this team. I think the Jaguars win. I think they win the game. And I know it kind of feels, in my head, it kind of feels like I just said that, so now I've doomed them to lose. But they're also, I think they're undefeated in the throwbacks. And they're wearing the throwbacks on Monday Night Football. The vibes are going to be incredible. I think the stadium's going to be rocking. This is the first big game of the Liam Cohen era. And I just think their ability to run the ball and play good defense is going to help shorten the game.
How are we deploying Travis Hunter this week?
I think he's going to be more of a receiver than DB, largely because the Chiefs outside of Xavier Worthy don't really have a credible receiving threat.
Agreed.
And I think they want to continue to get him involved in the offense, get him more plays in the playbook. He actually had a couple nice plays as a receiver against San Francisco. The block on one of the big Travis Etienne runs where he digs out the nickel Upton Stout. I was like, okay, I didn't think Travis Hunter was going to be out here like hammering dudes on duo. And then the play where he goes up the ladder and makes the catch for a first down. I think you're going to see a whole lot more of getting him involved on choice routes, getting him involved just underneath and trying to isolate him against a Chiefs team that if they play a lot of heavy personnel looks, you're going to have the opportunity to attack their linebackers.
I will say anytime I'm scouting and I hear that a wide receiver also played DB, Jalen Waddle is one that comes to mind. I love that. The Travis Hunter obviously plays both ways, but like usually it speaks to their mentality because not a lot of receivers want to flip over the other side of the ball and deliver hits. They a lot of guys shy away from the contact area of the game, but the ones that have that in their background, more often than not, they're willing to play physical. And you saw that with Travis Hunter. Harry, one of his locks, KC Jacksonville. He has over 46.5. It's one of his locks. I'm not locking up anything in this game because the Chiefs, after what I saw last week and how they beat down the Ravens, I can't say for certain that they won't just do the same to Jacksonville. All right, Sunday, you can count on an NFL on CBS showdown in the city of brotherly love when Bo Nix and the Broncos face Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, or rookie sensation Jackson Dart. Sensation's a lot there, but sensation Jackson Dart leading the Giants on the road against the Saints. It all begins with the NFL Today at noon Eastern. Count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. All right, we got more games. Let's get to them right after this.
You can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. So even if you can't count on accurate expiration dates,
that is a rookie mistake,
or people appreciating your fashion sense,
Jim, the crowd is not on board here.
you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS, streaming on Paramount Plus.
Glad we wear our good jerseys.
Yeah.
Let's get to that featured CBS game, Broncos at Eagles. Eagles 4.5-point favorites at home. 43.5 points is the over-under here. Some interesting Eagles notes. They've now won 20 of their last 21 games. Only 6 teams in NFL history have pulled off such a feat. And Jalen Hurts has won his last 18 games, 18 starts, when he has started and finished the game. Important caveat there, because obviously the Commanders game last year, he went out in that one. But they face a Broncos team that is coming off of their best performance of the season against Cincinnati Bengals.
I'm really curious how Sean Payton attacks this Eagles defense. And the reason I'm really curious is because it feels like Denver wants to be a bigger team, get into more 21, 12 personnel looks, and run the football effectively. But the Eagles are one of the best teams in the NFL at defending against heavy personnel because that brings all of their big guys on the field. You put Jordan Davis on the field with Jalen Carter. You put guys like Moro Jomo into less roles where he has to like hold double teams, where he can just be a gap shooter. You have guys like Jalen Hunt. You bring Zadarius Smith on the field. They can get into their base defense, and they're really good at stopping the run from that. And what they'll also do is they can have Jahad Campbell walk down on the edge, so you really can't get any passing advantages. So I wonder if Sean Payton tries to play more 11 personnel, because the Eagles have largely just been average against 11 personnel this year. I think they're 17th in total EPA according to Consumer Sports. So I think there's an ability to get after this team in 11 personnel, but the issue is I don't know if the Broncos have the receiver talent to really threaten downfield. Now, that's going to come down to Sean Payton versus Vic Fangio, one of the best schemers and like designers of open offense, I think, in the NFL. Like, Sean Payton can get dudes open. But the thing that Vic Fangio does so well is he forces defenses to take what's there. Don't try and force anything downfield. And the way that the Eagles DBs play, they are so good in man coverage. And I think there's been an uptick for Fangio's defense in man coverage this year because he has guys he can trust out there. When they get into big personnel, they can have Cooper DeJean on the outside. So you have DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, and then both your safeties out there. They're so good in man coverage. I worry a little bit that this game becomes Bo Nix constantly having to check it down. And then the Eagles are such a good tackling team that those plays that were available against Cincinnati aren't there because the Eagles close space so well.
Yeah, checking down against this Eagles defense is exactly what they want you to do. That's what they are built to. I mean, that 3 across at the second level with Campbell, Bond, Cooper DeJean, those guys are not missing a lot. They are closing fast and not missing a lot of plays underneath. So you're going to have to attack down the football field if you're Denver to win this game. And I think on the flip side, why I like Philly in this one, Denver wants to go. They want to match up 1v1 versus your wide receivers, and with most teams they can. But I don't trust Riley Moss against Devontae Smith if that's the matchup. I think Pat Surtain can hold his own against AJ Brown. He can hold his own against a lot of guys in the NFL, but not a lot of teams have a number 2 that's as easy a separator as Devontae Smith. So that's the one matchup where I'm like, I think the Eagles might actually almost counterintuitively be able to move the football in this one against the Broncos defense, even if they have not really been haven't been at all a good passing offense this season.
What I'm really curious for with that side of the ball is, are the Eagles going to lean into their RPO game a little more? And I think they need to kind of get back into the RPO. I'm not going to say gimmicky. It's a little gimmicky, but I wonder if they're going to lean more into the RPO stuff because they can't just mash teams running the ball right now. Landon Dickerson is still very clearly not healthy. Tyler Steen is not Mekhi Becton. They can't just line up and run at you. And you don't want to lose Jalen Hurts' run threat against a team like Denver, who's going to play a lot of man coverage. They're going to try and blitz a lot. They're going to try and heat up Hurts. So I want to see if they lean more into the RPO, if they lean more into the screen action to try and get some offense going, because what Denver likes to do is they like manning everything up and saying, you got to beat us. And I'm not saying that the Eagles' talent is the issue, and I don't think their talent can't beat Denver's talent in the secondary, because I think they can. It's the design of the offense. It feels like every time their man answer is A.J. Brown go ball, A.J. Brown curl route, Devontae Smith stutter go. And it's like we know all those are happening. So I'm worried that they won't have any like designed picks, designed ways to get your guys in space. So I think they're going to try and lean more into the RPO game, try and force this defense to think a little more, and that way you can slow them down a little bit.
Yeah, and I do wonder if we see, with Dallas Goedert potentially not playing in this one, if we just see them scrap the two tight end stuff with him. Like, you can't have Grant Calcaterra and Kylan Granson out there, and Cameron. Like, it just they
are not blockers. None of those guys are blockers, and you could tell in the Tampa game they were getting worked in the run game, and so part of me feels like this is a little bit of a tough matchup for the Eagles offense, because the strength of this Denver defense lies in the interior defensive line. They're able to do all the stuff they want to do because that interior defensive line kicks everybody's ass. So I wonder if they're going to see a little more design picks, design screen stuff to get A.J. Brown, to get Devontae Smith going early, and just sort of I also wonder if they get Jalen Hurts a little bit more in the design run game. He's only got like 5 non-QB sneak, non-scramble rushing attempts this year. I wonder if they try and get him going, or are they trying to like save his body for a late run? But I don't know what's going on there. But I do think Jalen Hurts as a runner can really be effective in this game because the linebackers for Denver aren't that great right now.
Yeah, I do think, though, they're probably just saving them. Like, they're not going to. You know who you are. You know you'll be there at the end, and you know that subject him to more hits than he got to right now. Probably as a long-term strategy, not in your best interest. But this game is going to be great. I truly I think Denver's talented enough to give them a real scare to even win this one. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. It's just going to come down to really probably how Bo Nix plays. Keeping it honest, like, it's going to be which Bo Nix do you get? If you get the Bo Nix you saw the first 3 weeks of the season, there's just no shot that they're winning this game.
If you get, from Monsters Inc., the Scary Feet, if you get Scary Feet Bo Nix, you're losing this game. If his footwork is just all out of whack and he cannot hit anything downfield, the Eagles are just going to pick on him. They're going to say, yeah, you can take all those checkdowns. Those are not going for explosives because this team tackles so well. But if he can get all his cleats in the ground and really start firing passes, I think they have a chance, but I don't know if I trust Bo Nix enough to make that happen.
Let's get to Commanders at Chargers. Chargers 2.5-point favorites here. 48.5 is the over-under. Big news. Jayden Daniels back, full participant at practice yesterday. Terry McLaurin, though, is number one wideout, not quite back. Didn't practice yesterday with that quad. Looks like he's unlikely to go. On the flip side, Joe Alt with an ankle, not practicing, looks unlikely to go as well. And so that's why this is one of my locks. I got the under in this one. 48.5 is too much. If you have a hobbled but playing Jayden Daniels without his number one wide receiver, and then the Chargers offensive line without their 2 starting tackles, we saw how it looked last week. I think it's just going to be a run first game for both these teams.
What I really want to see from this team or from the Commanders defense, they are terrible against motion. They are awful when teams use motion against them. And a large part of it is because I think they have one of the oldest defenses in the NFL, and your best players being old and slow does not work against motion. You know, we've seen Marshawn Lattimore has not been good this season. Bobby Wagner has been a statue in coverage this season. So it's really hard to scheme around two linebackers who are only good at blitzing and going downhill. But with the way the Chargers are right now as a passing unit without the offensive line, I wonder if they can really attack this team downfield. I do like the under in this scenario. I just, especially for this game, I want to see the Chargers really sort of get after them in the quick game, especially in the passing game, and see if they can use motion to what the Commanders will do is, like we said, they'll bump a guy into the box and then they'll bump a guy out of the box. They will bump their nickel into the box, bump Bobby Wagner out of the box. That's all you want to do. If you are the Chargers offense, try and get Bobby Wagner isolated in coverage and try and run the ball on them using motion. So I'm curious if the Commanders defense has found any answer for that.
Yeah, because if it's Bobby Wagner against Ladd McConkey, if that's who you're bumping him to, good God, man, that is going to be. I mean, it's going to look comical. But yeah, your point on the Commanders defense being slow. They have 4 guys that even see snaps who are on their rookie deal. 4 guys. It's an insanely low amount for a defense when you're talking about 16, 17 guys that see snaps. 3/4 of them are 27 or older. It's just it is a defense that, to have the results they're getting, they're 22nd in dropback success rate defensively, 24th in EPA per play. It's a bad defense still, and it's old. That's like a kiss of death because it's there's no help coming up. It's only when you're old, when you have old players, they only get worse more often than not. And unfortunately, here's Commanders defense. All the additions they made have not made it any better from what we saw a year ago. But I do just think if they're going to get it done in any game, it's against a team that is starting both their backup tackles. The Chargers offense, as soon as it happened, just went in the tank last week. And yeah, it was a little different animal against the New York Giants, but there's only so much you can do when you got to help both sides. And that's why I think, and I really like the under in this one, is just because running ball. That's the only thing that I think is going to be their answer. The only way to protect Justin Herbert from a ton of unnecessary hits is just to give Omarion Hampton 20+ carries in this game.
I will say, though, on the flip side, if Jayden Daniels is fully healthy, that battle between Deion Henley and Jayden Daniels as a scrambler going to be so freaking cool. And I'm so excited to watch this Chargers defense. I'm always excited to watch the Chargers defense, but because without Terry McLaurin, you can kind of hone in on Deebo Samuel as a receiver. And then again, the Chargers tackle so well. They are such a smart tackling team that they're going to be able to limit those explosive plays to shorter gains. And that's something that we saw when the Commanders played the Packers. They were not able to generate explosives because all those opportunities after the catch were only cut down to 4 yards. They were only cut down to 3 yards by a good tackling Packers team. And then the Jayden scrambles just weren't working. Now you have a team in the Chargers who has speed at the second level. They have Derwin James and Deion Henley, who both will be able to run down Jayden Daniels. So I wonder what the game plan is, especially to attack this defense. The best way to attack the Chargers is to try and get them out of that too high shell by running the football at them. The problem is they are so dang good at defending the run out of those too high shells, and the Commanders aren't exactly lighting the world up as a running offense right now. Even like when Jayden Daniels was healthy, they weren't exactly setting the world on fire as a rushing offense. So I'm curious if they've learned their lesson without Jayden in the offense to try and generate some explosives, try and get Bill Krosky-Merritt more involved, because that's the only way you're going to beat this team. You got to run them out of those shells.
Yeah, I'm predicting a big Bill game. I think they do. Ultimately, I think that's the difference in this game, and I'm picking the Commanders because I just do not trust this Chargers offense, unfortunately, after what I saw last week.
I don't know if I can pick this one because I love I love the Chargers defense and their ability to make this game a rock fight. But like you said, I just don't know if the Chargers have enough offensively on the offensive line. Like Justin Herbert is going to get hit a lot. He's going to get pressured a lot, which might end up making the Commanders' deficiencies on defense null and void because he can't throw the ball if he's on the ground.
That's $2 at Seahawks. Seahawks 3-point favorites. 44.5 points is the over-under in this one. Bucks are a little banged up heading into this. Bucky Irving may not play with an ankle injury day-to-day. Jamel Dean had a hip injury, didn't practice. Mike Evans with his hamstring still not practicing. Baker Mayfield didn't even practice with a knee and biceps injury. Benjamin Morrison didn't practice with a hamstring. Sterling Shepard with a foot. Tyke Smith with an ankle. I think Todd Bowles joked that they couldn't even, like, that they had to do a walkthrough just because they didn't have enough guys to fill out full practice periods. That's just, this is one where, like, if you're walking in with that, I don't see how the Seahawks don't win this game.
If you're in the Tampa Bay area and you received the phone call, that was probably the Bucks trying to see if you had some time to get some reps in on Sunday, because they will need you. Todd Bowles needs you on his defense.
That reminds me actually, when I was in college, so I went at Notre Dame in, I believe it was 2011. Whatever year Notre Dame women's basketball team lost to Brittany Griner in the finals, Baylor. The next day, I'm at the rec center, and there was a flyer from the women's basketball program or something. It wasn't like the next day. It was like a few days after. It said, if you are female over 6 foot tall, please try out for the basketball. Like please come try out for the, and it wasn't even a joke. Like they just needed tall bodies to go practice with them. So they were just looking for 6 foot women to try out for the women's basketball team.
Look, man, this same thing with the Bucks. If you are anywhere between the 5'11" and 6'1" range and can at least run a little bit, they might need you in the secondary.
Run a sub 4.6. We got you.
This game was so much cooler before all the injuries that it sucks that everybody's hurt, especially if Bucky Irving's hurt, because that is a large part of their offense in terms of him being able to make guys miss after the catch. This is going to be a big there's going to be a big Rachaad White game, especially with the way that Seattle blitzes. He has been really good in blitz pickup this year. But without Tyke Smith being healthy, without Jamel Dean being healthy, Benjamin Morrison has some nice plays against the Eagles, but I just worry that this Seahawks offense is just going to play action this pass rush, so they won't be able to get anything going, and then you just hammer the middle of the field against this team. The Bucks linebackers, very quietly, have not been good defending the pass this year. They have not been good in space. They haven't been good at coverage, and that feels like a nail in the coffin for a team that runs an offense like the Seahawks. If you're not good at defending the middle of the field, the game's probably going to be over very quickly. So I like the Seahawks in this game largely because everybody's hurt for Tampa, but I do got to say this is the coolest uniform matchup of the year, and in the last few years, actually.
It really is, and I'm hoping that Jacob Parrish can single-handedly put the team on his back in this one because he's going to have to. Maybe have him follow JSN. That might be your only opportunity to stop what's going to happen to you. But the point about the linebackers is apt because that's where Clinton Kubiak circles every single game. That's what they're literally trying to do, is just put those guys in a bind from snap one to the end of the game. And the Bucs linebackers, I mean, Levante is just like, there's only so much you could do at 35 years old, right? He just doesn't have the juice anymore. And then Servassier is just flat out not good coverage. We've talked about that since week one when he gave up over 100 yards himself to Bijan. So I do think that the matchups fully healthy were kind of leaning towards the Seahawks and that it was going to take like a Baker high-end performance to get it done. The matchups not fully healthy, really favoring the Seahawks. So I like them quite a bit, especially at home here, especially with that cross-country flight, one of the longest flights you'll get in all the NFL. Texans at Ravens. Texans 1.5-point favorites. Obviously, the report was Lamar Jackson's out 2 to 3 weeks. Not completely verified as of yet, but that was the report. So it's only 1.5. Obviously, if he's not going, though, I don't see what much chance Baltimore has of winning with Cooper Rush as your backup. He's done all right stuff in the past, but it's like Cooper Rush with the defense, that's a disaster right now. 40.5 points is the over-under here. I actually really like the under in this one. You do as well.
Yep, one of my locks is the under because this is Cooper Rush. And even though the Texans put up 26 points, please go back and watch that game. That game was 6-0 until like the middle of the third quarter. I think the Texans are just going to be able to lean on the Bucks, especially, again, you won't have Lamar Jackson probably. You won't have Nani Madubuike. You won't have Broderick Washington. You won't have Travis Jones. Kyle Van Noy is hurt. Roquan Smith is hurt. Nate Wiggins got carted off on Sunday. Marlon Humphrey got hurt. You literally are down to John Jenkins, Teddy Buchanan. You're down to guys that you did not expect to play this year.
Yeah.
In the starting lineup. And that's just, it's tough because the Ravens are so thin on the interior of the defensive line that now it seems like a fair fight for the Texans offensive line. Like now you can actually get something going, but then like I still don't know if the Texans are going to be able to run the ball. You know, like I do think the under is the plan for this game, largely because both teams just are still trying to figure it out offensively. But if the Texans can't win this game, I am ready to just like be done with them if they don't win.
Yeah, it reminded me. So on Tuesday, I went to trivia at a bar here, and they had the Pony Express doc playing about SMU, and they were talking about how before the death penalty that they had when they were paying guys under the table, they were one of the best programs in college football, and they come back after the death penalty, and it's like it's still SMU. You still have the pageantry. But the players they had were not the SMU. It was not SMU anymore. It was a lot of guys. One of the guys said, I was looking around and I'm like, where like we stink. Like the coach is looking around. It's like, we're not good. That's what it feels like with Baltimore right now. They are still the Baltimore Ravens. They're going to be wearing Baltimore Ravens jerseys out there. But you're looking around and you're like, no, wait, this team actually stinks. If we don't have Marlon Humphrey, Roquan Smith, Nate Wiggins, Ronnie Stanley, Lamar Jackson, Chidobe Awuzie, Patrick Ricard, if Tyler Linderbaum's banged up, if Kyle Hamilton's banged up, if Kyle Van Noy can't go, if Travis Jones can't go, it's like, no, this isn't the Ravens anymore. This is like a random team that could be anybody. I just don't see how they win, unfortunately.
The latest report from their Wednesday practice, Chidobe Awuzie didn't practice, Marlon Humphrey didn't practice, Lamar Jackson didn't practice, Patrick Ricard didn't practice, Roquan Smith didn't practice, Ronnie Stanley didn't practice, Tez Walker and Nate Wiggins didn't practice, and then Kyle Van Noy was limited. Tyler Linderbaum was limited. Travis Jones was limited. Yeah, like, what do you do? That's basically all of your stars on both sides of the ball are just injured. And I do think them not having Patrick Ricard has mattered a little bit more than people think. And I think it's because the Ravens have been a little hit or miss in the red zone. They've been very, like, a lot of their offense has been a little volatile this season. And I think it's because Patrick Ricard just doesn't – Zaire Mitchell-Payton does not offer the same pop as a run blocker that Patrick Ricard does, obviously. And I think that's hurt them in the red zone as well.
The one interesting note, Derrick Henry, he's averaged 144 yards per game in his career against Houston and has what I think is the most unbreakable record in NFL history. He had 3 straight games of 200-plus yards rushing against the Houston Texans from 2020 to 2022. I don't think anyone is ever going to do that ever again. But he kind of owns the Houston Texans. So the one note that may be in Baltimore's favor in this one. But yeah, I think we both like the Texans quite a bit. Let's get to the Raiders at Colts. Colts 6.5-point favorites. 47.5 points is the over-under. Interesting note, though, for the Colts. Xavier Howard, he's out for this one because he just retired again. He's gone. He pulled the Vontae Davis. Not quite a full Vontae Davis. He didn't come out at halftime. But one of those things where it's just like, hey, if you don't got it, especially in the game of football, is you don't see a lot of guys retiring midseason in other sports. But in football, if you ain't getting up and ready every Sunday, yeah, it's probably time to hang him up. So Xavier Howard hangs him up midseason.
Happy trails to Xavier Howard, and it kind of did feel that way because, according to PFF, he gave up the second most receiving yards in the Rams game. Look, man, defending Puka Nacua will do that to you. Having to run around and chase Puka and Devontae Adams, I get it, man. I get it. It's tough for the Colts, who now might have one of the thinnest secondaries in the NFL. I mean, they're actively playing a lot of guys that, like Xavier Howard, were signed off the street. So I don't know if the Raiders will be able to take advantage of what the Colts' biggest weakness is, and they don't have a lot of pass rush. They can't rush the passer very well on the edges. Leatu Latu is really their only guy. But the Raiders are so disappointing. Geno Smith has frustrated me. Because it just feels like Geno has lost a little bit of zip on the passes, which makes all the downfield stuff not work. And then they don't have quick game. They don't have quick game. So everything is either run game with Ashton Junty, which might not work against a really good defensive tackle duo in DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart. And then the downfield action just won't be there because you don't have anybody threatening downfield. So I wonder if this is a little bit of a stoppable force versus a movable object situation. But I do think the Colts are going to put up a lot of points in this game just because I think they'll have the ball more.
Yeah, to put some names to why the Colts have really struggled in their secondary, you have third-rounder Justin Wally goes to IR. You have Jalen Jones, your starter from a year ago, on IR as well. You have Kenny Moore, who's questionable with an Achilles. And obviously Juju Brents, who they thought they could rely on, never really came back from that knee injury last year and was cut preseason. So what we thought could be a good secondary, well, it's kind of gotten decimated by injuries since, the start of the season. So this Colts secondary, Raider secondary, we could see some points put up on the board. I think 47.5. If I'm leaning anywhere on that, I'm leaning over, especially since also the Colts run defense has been a disaster this year. Second worst run defense in terms of success rate in the NFL. Maybe we get another good Ashton Genty game after what we saw last week. But it's hard for me to go anywhere but the Colts, just given what this offense is like. They just have so many answers offensively, so many options. It is one of the best offenses in the NFL. Crazy that we're saying that about Daniel Jones' offense, but with Shane Steichen dialing it up, it's just been tremendous this season.
I also think their plan to defend and slow down Max Crosby will be a lot better than Chicago's. Like, that's going to be the one guy you have to hone in on because against the Bears, he wrecked their entire game plan. So I wonder what the game plan will be to attack Crosby. I just think there are going to be a lot of opportunities downfield against this Raiders defense that really, I don't think their linebackers get enough depth, which really gives up a lot of explosives. So this feels like a big Daniel Jones bounce back game.
It feels like an Adonai Mitchell bounce back game. I'm predicting it. We didn't have player props for a lot of these, so a lot of our locks are just going to be overs and unders and lines. But give me Adonai's over when it comes out. I think he's going to eat. I think he's going to be pissed, and he's going to come out. And obviously, against this Raiders secondary, it doesn't take a lot to do much against them. All right, we're going to take a quick break. After that, going to carve through the rest of the slate right after this.
Saturday kicks off at noon, and it's big time. First, Air Force and Navy face off in Annapolis. Then it's big time at the Rose Bowl when UCLA hosts Penn State.
Vikings, 3.5-point favorites against the Browns in London. 35.5 is the over-under. That's the lowest total we've seen all season. And, well, it's because Dillon Gabriel, your starter, and Browns quarterbacks, historically, since the franchise restart, they're 0-16 in their debuts. A Browns quarterback has never won their debut. That is actually one of the most insane stats I've ever heard. Let's hope Dillon Gabriel changes that. But against the defense that's been tops in the NFL on EPA per play this season, the Minnesota Vikings, yeah, probably not his best opportunity here.
This feels like a game that's going to hinge on which offensive line can just be a little bit better, or which defensive line can wreck this game. Yeah. I really worry for Dillon Gabriel going up against a Brian Flores defense. Like we said with Jackson Dart going up against the Chargers, this is a completely different animal. You can try as much as you want to simulate all the pressure looks in practice. It is so much different when you get out there and actually see it. And I wonder how Kevin Stefanski is going to lean. Is he going to lean on the run game in this game to try and make sure that his quarterback doesn't get put in obvious passing situations. I think I couldn't find it, but one of my bets, I wanted to put Quinshon Judkins over on rushing attempts because I think they're just going to try and hammer him on the ground. They're going to try and turn this game into a ground game based offense and just try and make sure Dillon Gabriel doesn't have to be put in obvious passing situations. And on the flip side, Myles Garrett might just completely wreck this game plan, especially if they find out that he can line up over the right tackle. And if Brian O'Neill doesn't play, it's going to be Justin School. So again, which defensive line can take over the game first?
Yes. And if it's Justin School against Myles Garrett, I'm betting on the Browns taking over that. But I would love the under here, even though it's so low still, except for the fact that I'm guessing we see multiple defensive touchdowns in this game. Like the defenses may outscore the respective offenses and still get us to hit an over here because that's how dominant they're truly going to. Like you said, the defensive lines in this game are the stories. They will take over. So hopefully, I mean, it'll be a soccer score. It's in London. They get to see, they enjoy that stuff over there. But the real story in this one, the real story that I want to get to, Shedeur. Oh, the dude's just weird. All right. He's just bizarre. The interview, I saw it on the timeline. I thought it was edited at first. He's getting interviewed in the locker room, getting asked questions, and he's pantomiming his answers. He's not actually saying the answers. He's opening his mouth like he's saying the answers, but not actually saying the answers. I don't know what I still can't believe he just did that.
So in his defense a little bit, it is in response to Rex Ryan saying he needs to be quiet and like do the work. So in response to that, I think it's hilarious. I think it is incredibly funny that he used that as his way of responding to Rex Ryan, which sort of felt kind of unprovoked because they were talking about Dillon Gabriel and Joe Flacco during the segment, and it just felt like it was like, let me get my game off real quick. But it's so funny. Like I really cannot like stress to you enough. Like, please go watch that video. Because at first I thought it was fake. I thought somebody had edited Shedeur Sanders' voice out of it. And I was just like, is this supposed to be like a joke? Like, is he like, this isn't that funny? And then realizing that Shedeur did it himself, it's hilarious. And it's a really funny way of going back at Rex Ryan. So more power to him because it's incredibly funny and he got Rex Ryan there.
Dude, it's a circus and it's hilarious. I mean, it's great to watch for us. It gives us so much content. But if you're in that Browns locker room, you just got to be like, well, why are we still talking about the guy who's QB3 on the roster? Still QB3 on the roster. Let's get to the Giants. Go ahead.
It's incredibly ironic to, he said it was said a couple weeks ago, like he didn't want to go to the Ravens because he didn't want to sit behind Lamar Jackson. And then Lamar gets hurt. Like it's just timing is weird. The NFL is just such a weird sport. Like at the end of the day, this is a oblong football kicked around, run around by 21 dudes. Football is weird.
That is the truth. Let's get to Giants at Saints, who came off a weird one in their own right. Giants get their first win last week, traveling to New Orleans. But even after that, they're dogs against New Orleans, who have yet to win a game. 41.5 points is the over-under here. Saints are a little banged up, though. Trevor Penning, Juwan Johnson, Cesar Ruiz, all with ankle injuries, didn't practice. Chase Young with a calf injury didn't practice. So not that great to begin with. They're a little banged up. Even if Jackson Dart, I'm not trusting him to pass after what we saw last week. I am trusting this defensive line to do some diabolical things, though, if and when New Orleans drops back to pass.
I wonder if New Orleans drops back to pass anyway in this game. Like they might just have to lean on the run game. The Giants have one of the worst run defenses in the NFL, largely just because you have three edges who all play with speed, so they're all going to try and get upfield. None of them are very good at defending the run, and the way Shane Bowen has kind of tried to defend against that is he'll move Brian Burns or Abdul Carter to off-ball linebacker, And that's cool. That's fine. Like on passing situations, you want to get them like a head start. But when teams want to run the ball, it'd be nice to have an actual linebacker out there instead of an edge, because they're much better, obviously, at defending the run at the point of attack than they are seeing it off ball.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if the Saints just look at this game and go, we're just going to try and run game this entire thing, force the Giants to play from behind. But I do also like the rushing attempts for Cam Skadaboo in this game. I do think they're going to try and lean on the run game real heavy. Jackson Dart didn't really it wasn't a wow performance from Jackson Dart. It was, he ran the ball and then he handed the ball off to Cam Skadaboo and he made a couple throws when he was needed. And I think that's just going to be the game plan for him to try and get his feet wet. So I actually kind of like the under in this game because it's going to be a short game.
Yes. And I think the game plan last week told you a lot about how they feel about Dart's readiness. Like if a quarterback can really roll, they can really run, and they also are ready as a passer, more often than not, you're not throwing them to the wolves. You're not using them heavily as a runner. Like I think back to like Kyler Murray's rookie year, they didn't really use him a ton as a runner. I mean, even Jayden Daniels last year, he was involved, but it wasn't like the main thing. Last week, it was like the main thing with Dart. It was the main attraction was for a lot of that game, his legs. You only do that if you're really not ready as a passer, because you, like we said, you don't want to subject Jalen Hurts to hits. You don't want to subject Jackson Dart, if he's really your franchise, to hits, unless that is your only path to success. And so I agree. I think this is a run-heavy matchup for both, a run-heavy game plan for both of these teams. You don't really have to tell Kellen Moore twice to make a run-heavy game plan, but especially against this Giants defense with their lack of success, worst success rate, actually, against opposing rushing offenses this season. So all that being said, I still like the Giants. I still just think that they have more game changers defensively right now.
Yeah, I like the Giants in this game. I think they just have more talent, and if they can get up to a lead early and force the Saints into passing situations, then they're just going to be able to tee off on them.
Let's get to Dolphins at Panthers. Dolphins 1.5 point favorites. 44.5 points is the over-under. And this is our very first social pick of our locks. Me, you, Harry, all on Dolphins minus 1.5 against Carolina.
This low-key feels kind of disrespectful to the Dolphins. Like, very quietly, like, the Panthers just got beat 43-12. Like, that game was not close. And it feels like the Dolphins kind of got their swagger back. It feels like they got a little bit more energy. I know Tyreek Hill is going to be out for the rest of the year. But where the Dolphins have been very good, like, despite everything that has happened for the Dolphins this year, they're 8th in EPA per carry on the ground. And they do a lot of fun misdirection stuff. That has been what's been the Panthers' defense Achilles heel. They are not good against misdirection because it pokes at their linebackers. Their linebackers are not very good. So I feel like this game is going to be you're going to see a lot of Mike McDaniel, a lot of Dolphins plays on Twitter for how successful they are with the reverses. You're going to see a whole bunch of people posting cut-ups of it. It just feels like this Panthers defense is going to have their head spinning.
Yeah, and given how the Panthers play that we've talked about, that they never play close games. I mean, like, tease it up to like 9.5 if you really want. Like, it could just be an absolute blowout, or it could be a blowout the other way. That's kind of the only games the Panthers play this season. Now let's get to Cowboys at Jets. Jets 2.5 point dogs at home. Cowboys favored, but it's only 2.5 points. 47.5 points is the over under. I believe we both have a lock from this game. You love
I like minus 2.5.
2.5. I love the over. 47.5 points. These defenses stink. The Cowboys defense, their pass defense is right now one of the worst pass defenses in NFL history. They're averaging 0.442 EPA per dropback. To put that in perspective, Jordan Love leads the league at 0.356. So they're basically turning every offense they face into the best offense. Not like that's like better than Peyton Manning prime 2014 season with the Broncos. Like, this is absurd stuff that the Cowboys are doing defensively. And so I love the over in this one, 47.5 points.
They have been the worst team against the passing NFL. Very quietly, they haven't been the worst against the run. I think right now they're 28th, which isn't the worst. And I think that is an improvement for them. So I wonder if they're going to try and load up against the run against the Jets and try and force Justin Fields to be a passer, because like we saw on Monday, if the Cowboys get out to a lead and force the Jets to have to pass the ball to play from behind, I don't think the Jets can win that way. So I sort of feel like Dallas runs away with this one. I think the Jets give up way too many explosives in the passing game. They're still trying to transition to more of that man coverage, and it just hasn't worked right now. I think a lot of that is, although Aaron Glenn is the head coach, he is not calling plays defensively. It is Steve Wilks calling plays for the Jets. And it just feels like they've given up far too many explosives for a team as talented as they are defensively. Where I do think they can get after them is in the pass rush, because I think the latest report was Tyler Smith didn't practice yesterday and Tyler Guyton didn't practice yesterday. On top of that, Tyler Booker didn't play last week. So all three Tylers might be gone for this game. If the Jets can't take advantage there, then they probably will not win this game.
Yeah, I have no handle on who's going to win this game, because as most Cowboys games go, it's just going to be a shootout. Like, it's just going to be back and forth. But I will say I am worried about the start of the Aaron Glenn era in New York, because when it's your side of the ball, when it's the defensive side of the ball, you come to this defensive head coach and the defense stinks the way it has in New York. Like, they're not terrible. They're not like the Cowboys, but they are not a untalented defense. There are good players on this defense. To not be playing well with them, they're the only team in the NFL this year that doesn't have a turnover. They haven't taken the ball away once. Like, you're a culture-changing head coach, whatever. You can't get one turnover through 4 weeks of the season. That's worrisome to me.
And it sucks because, again, they have the talent, but they give up too many explosives in the passing game. They try and play a lot of man coverage on third down, but with Brandon Stevens out there, you don't really you don't have the horses outside of Sauce Gardner to really make things happen in the secondary.
Yeah, they don't have. I mean, it's Brandon Stevens. Let's be real. They shouldn't have signed him in the first place. They knew what they were getting into, so they kind of made their bed there. All right, let's get to Sunday Night Football, where the Patriots travel to Buffalo to face the Bills. Bills 8.5-point favorites in a divisional matchup. 49.5 points is the over-under. This is the battle between the number one offense in the NFL in terms of drop-back EPA per play, Buffalo Bills, and the number three. I bet you didn't think the New England Patriots were the number three offense in terms of EPA per dropback, but they have been through 4 games this season. Because of all that, I kind of like the over in this one.
I like where you're thinking with the over. I do really just want to see this game with these two quarterbacks duke it out. It feels like Drake May has hit another level when it comes to processing, when it comes to ball placement, and his ability just to keep the Patriots offense on schedule, even like we said going into the season, even without a bona fide wide receiver one. We're still waiting on the big Stephon Diggs game. He sort of is trending that way when it comes to how he played against the Panthers. And then Josh McDaniels, like we said on Tuesday, he's doing some really fun and creative stuff with this offense. So I wonder how they're going to try and poke holes in this Buffalo defense, try and get them into multiple personnel looks. They like to be in heavy formations. So I wonder if they're going to try and lean on them in the run game and ask Drake May just to attack downfield. But this Bills offense is so good, and they're so good at maximizing what they're able to do offensively with formation and motion, and they try and force teams to stretch to their absolute limit, and then they just attack all the weak points. So Joe Brady's done a fantastic job with the offense, but it feels like this year they have hit another level.
Yeah, I don't see the Patriots winning this one. I think it will be a fun game regardless, but just the defense right now I don't think has the horses. Not a lot of people do have the horses to match up with this Buffalo Bills team. They just throw so much at you, and they can win. They can win any which way. I mean, a lot of that's because they have an offensive line that travels so well that every single game they are going to show up, but they can go super heavy personnel. They can go super light personnel. They can spread it out. They can run James Cook. They can run Josh Allen. Like, there's just so many options at their disposal that you better have yourself defensively options at every single level or game changers. And right now the Patriots, they got the DTs who are nice. They got Christian Gonzalez, who's nice. I don't think they have enough to stop this Bills offense.
Yeah, that's their second level is probably going to get ravaged in the passing game. I worry about them, especially because New England is built to rush the passer. Milton Williams has been amazing rushing the passer, but they are very light up front. Christian Barmore is a pass rusher. I think he's been a little lackluster in the run game this year, and that just feels like a bad matchup against a Bills team that wants to have their identity through the ground game. So I wouldn't be surprised if they just lean on that and they turn Josh Allen into a distributor on offense, kind of like they did against Miami, and just make sure that Drake May doesn't get the ball.
Let's get to Titans at Cardinals. Cardinals 8.5-point favorites, 41.5 is the over-under. We're very much trending towards, unfortunately, not discussing the Titans a lot this season because, I mean, until like Cam Ward, until some like status quo change with Cam Ward, it's like there's not another interesting storyline for this Titans team. The interesting storyline is what's Brian Callahan going to say in his post-game presser, because that's really like all you look forward to as a objective observer when watching this Titans team.
As a connoisseur of bad football and someone who has seen a lot of bad football in his lifetime, this Titans team is horrendous. Like, it just feels like they don't trust anybody on offense outside of their quarterback. They can't really run the ball. They can't really get the ball going downfield because they don't have anybody outside of Calvin Ridley. And even Calvin Ridley hasn't played up to par this year. Their entire team is built on Cam Ward doing something crazy, which he can, and Jeffrey Simmons splash plays. Very quietly, the Jerry Sneed has not been it since getting to Tennessee, getting healthy. He has not been very good at all this year. And going up against a Cardinals team that kind of just needs the mojo, that needs a swagger back a little bit. I also worry about the Cardinals because both their starting running backs are on IR. So it's going to be Michael Carter and Emery DeMercado in the backfield. And this is going to have to be a Kyler Murray game in passing situations. I hope they lean into Marvin Harrison Jr. big slot. I hope they kind of lean into him in the slot because it looked like that worked. Lean into what's worked and try and turn it into a trend. So I do like Arizona in this game. I want to see them keep going to Marvin Harrison Jr. downfield because it feels like the second half of the Thursday night game could really be a confidence booster for them. Yeah,
this has just got to be – they better pick up where they left off in that fourth quarter, keep that momentum going if they're going to get back in this division. Like you better look good against a team like the Titans if you really have any aspirations of being your NFC West champion. Last game here before we get to our locks recap. Lions at Bengals. Lions 10.5-point favorites. 48.5 points is the over-under. Some locks we like. Harry likes the Detroit covering 10.5. I like Detroit covering 10.5. And you like Jamar Chase's receptions over.
I like the receptions over largely because if DJ Reed does not play, which is trending towards he doesn't play, Jamar Chase has already shown a little bit of frustration about not getting the ball. So I feel like the offense this week is going to be get Jamar the ball no matter what, especially against a team that plays as much man coverage as Detroit. But yeah, I just think Detroit's going to run over this Bengals defense. I don't know if the Bengals are going to be able to score enough to keep up. Even if Joe Burrow did play, this is going to be a game where I don't think the Bengals score enough to keep up with the Lions team that is playing at such a high level on the ground right now.
See, I think they do score, though. I think it's easy to laugh at how poorly they've done sans Joe Burrow, but they face the Vikings. They face the Broncos. This Lions defense is decidedly not those guys. And especially without DJ Reed, they're decidedly not those guys. So I think you see them actually move the ball. And I think their game plan last week was just throw verts. Let's just toss it up, right? And it didn't quite work out because they have good corners, but the Lions cannot go mano-a-mano against T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. They just can't. They don't have the guys. They don't have what Denver Broncos had. So I think the Bengals score. I just also think they cannot stop the Detroit Lions. Not a lot of people can. They're first in the NFL in scoring this year, 34.3 points per game. So I think this is a 40 to 20-ish sort of game, and I think the Detroit Lions roll here in Cincy.
Yeah, this is going to be a game where Detroit's going to get a lot of yards after the catch. I think the Bengals had one of the worst tackling performances I've seen this year on Monday night. And that's not a good sign going against a Lions team with so many dudes that can make you miss after the catch. I feel like this game is going to be Jared Goff leaning into the hits with play action, with the run game, because they're going to be so keyed in on stopping the run. There are going to be a lot of voids behind the linebackers in front of the safeties. So this game might get out of hand. And then I think, like we said, like the Lions don't really have the DBs to keep up. So this feels like a screw it, Jamar down there somewhere type of game.
The one interesting note here for the Bengals, they are, and this was from the crack CBS Sports research team, they're the first team in the Super Bowl era to have under 55 rushing yards in each of their first 4 games. So it hasn't just been the quarterback position. This offensive line, and we talked about kind of the mismatch of this offensive line and how they've built it with these jumbo tackles and these skinny guards and interior. It's just like this has kind of been my problem with the Duke Tobin era of scouting, is they don't really rhyme or reason things. They don't have scouting cutoffs, so to speak. Like they kind of just, it never felt like there's like a plan, like a cohesiveness of how they want to build, whether it's their offensive line, whether it's just like their secondary that we saw last year in the Lou Anarumo era. It always feels like they're kind of putting some square pegs in round holes at some point in time. And it's resulted in the worst running game in the NFL so far this season from a pure production standpoint. So Cincinnati, the struggles, they ain't just the backup quarterback there. There's big issues with this team, even going forward. All right, let's get to our locks. Recap. Locks are sponsored all season long by Cash App. Making money moves should be easy, and that's why there's Cash App. It's fast, safe, and honestly just way more personalized than the other apps out there. My locks, I had a bunch. Detroit minus 10.5. The Houston-Baltimore under 40.5. Dolphins minus 1.5 against the Panthers. Vegas, Colts over 47.5. Dallas, Jets over 47.5. Commanders, Chargers under 48.5. And I tossed the Buffalo Bills, New England Patriots over 50.5 on their late. JP's going Houston, Baltimore under. Dallas to cover 2.5, Dolphins to cover 1.5, and then the Jamar Chase over receptions hasn't come out yet. He's just going to hammer it no matter what it is. Harry's going Dolphins minus 1.5, KC-JAGS over 46.5, Lions to cover 10.5, and then the George Pickens anytime touchdown. That was a lock, sponsored by Cash App. As you heard me say at the top of the show, new Cash App users can use our code to get free money. Use our code PUSHING. Send $5 to a friend within 14 days, and you'll get $10 right in your account. Thank you, Cash App. That's the end of the show. We're back Sunday, as always, breaking down Sunday Night Football. Hopefully not after a 40-40 tie going till 2 a.m., but we'll be doing it regardless, even if it is. Like, subscribe, comment. Thanks so much for watching on our new YouTube channel if you are doing so. And if you're not, go check it out. Maybe you might enjoy it. Until Sunday, keep pushing.